Rudi Feller, sporting director of the German FA, says that if Julian Nagelsmann were to step down, of course, they would turn to Jurgen Klopp. No brainer, right?
No. I mean, he said he would take a 1 year sabbatical, so that would take him to summer 2025. So he would have to wait another year, potentially, if Nagelsmann goes to the World Cup 2026 and then steps down to go back to club level, which is, I think, what we all expect him to do. So maybe Klopp said, you know what, 2 years of going to the Maldives and to Hawaii and Tahiti.
He'll get bored with that, won't he?
Will he, do you think?
I don't know. I think
this is a great path for him to go to then take over Germany side.
I think what it does underscore, I think there is a concern, because, Nagelsmann wasn't super hot to trot for the German national team. I think there is a thought in their mind in saying, like, all right, this guy, he's very sure of himself. He's very cocky. He's still very young. There might be a scenario, 2025, who knows? Real Madrid call, Manchester United call. And they put a bunch of money on there and the opportunity to do this and that. Maybe City post-Pep. And he might say, hey, look, I'll leave it in the hands of Uncle Jurgen, and I'm out of here.
Yeah, right? That could be. You're right. That could
but
be.
It's nice to have Jurgen Klopp in reserve,
it's pretty good.
Potentially.
Pretty good. Relevo in Spain reports that UEFA said it was a mistake not to award a penalty for Marco Cucurellá's handball with Spain against Germany at the Euros in the quarterfinals. Gab, what do you make of this?
So I've been trying to follow up on this. So it's not UEFA making an official announcement, from what I can understand. Yeah. I think what's happened is, obviously you've got the referees and referees education people. At some point, where I would have thought a lot of the stuff would be confidential, and at some point in one of their things where they review decisions, they said this should have been, this should have been a penalty.
Yeah.
Which is, but then I would assume those things probably should be confidential. So it somehow leaked out of that. Again, at the time, I think we both said that it should be a penalty.
The whole world
100%.
said. I think the whole world
No, not the whole world. I'm sure Marco Cucurella feels differently.
Yeah. And the referee.
Look, I'm glad that they acknowledge it. And if it can be used for referee education, it goes forward. Otherwise, send all your complaints to Mr. A. Taylor and Mr. Who was the... Was it Mr. S. Atwell, I think it was.
Who's
Stewie? If it wasn't you in the VAR with somebody else, then don't bother.
Who's the head of the UEFA referee? So Collina is FIFA, right? Yeah. And UEFA is your friend Italian as well.
Roberto Rossetti,
Yeah, Rossetti, yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm just putting that on there.
What do you want?
No, I'm kidding.
Actually, I do wonder about that. Right?
But
when these guys like sit in this, when Collina or Rossetti sit in the, or even Howard Webb.
Yeah.
Right? When they're in the stands and they see a crappy decision on the pitch, are they tempted to just run on the pitch? Just get their phone and says, like, patch me into this moron's headset.
Imagine on the WhatsApp group, they send you.
I know. Jules, we love our Victor Osimhen. He didn't score, but he was devastating for Galatasaray again in the 3-1 win over PAOK in the Europa League. And your boy Mauro Icardi comes off and scores the third goal as well.
So now that Maurito is back fit, let's see what happens if they play together. What do you do with Icardi, who's the club captain, who got the armband when he came on?
They can play together, no problem. Osimhen can do whatever he wants.
That would be fun. But Osimhen should have scored, really. He was so involved, as you said, Gabby. He had plenty of chances. He created goals. He created chances. He looks super fit, super good. It's just that goal, that one goal, and after that, many will follow.
And super motivated as well.
Yeah, it looks. I mean, he had a chance after 20 seconds. So,
is there a scenario where maybe January rolls around, maybe Lukaku gets hurt, maybe De Laurentiis gets on the phone and says, "Hey, Victor, do you want to come back?"
Imagine. Oh, that would be lovely. Lazio, meanwhile, rose to a 3-0 win over Dynamo Kyiv as Bouladia scored twice. Gab, can they actually do something this season?
I think they can, actually. I think this team is coming together well. I mean, I think Marco Baroni, a lot of people turned up their nose when he was appointed, but he did such a good job at his previous clubs. And Bouladia, I don't know, he's not going to start every game for Lazio because obviously Tati Castellanos knows, but I mean, I think he's really underrated scorer.
Yeah.
It's time! It's Texter time! Albeit indirectly.
Yeah.
But according to a report by UL in Brazil, Lucas Paquetá's uncle and cousin sent cash to Luis Enrique, who now plays for Textor's Botafogo. back when he was a Betis player. Now, both Paquetá and Luis Enrique, as you know, they're accused of spot fixing, getting intentionally booked for betting purposes. In fact, Lucas Paquetá is the subject of a long-running investigation here in England, which could result, if found guilty, could result in a serious suspension. What's your take on this? I mean,
it's just a little bit.
We know
weird,
it happened, right? We know that they got the money, right?
Yeah.
But they say it was because they had borrowed money from Luis Enrique and were simply paying him back.
I know. I think there's a lot of weird things in this story. It's very murky too. I just think he has dragged on that for quite a long time. And in like all those cases, I don't know if they're innocent or not, Luis Enrique and Paquetá and their cousins, their uncles, their sisters, their mothers. I don't know. But I think there's a point where we need an answer. We need the end of the investigation. People to say, okay, this is what happened. This is what not happened. This is what the players did or didn't do. But we need something, because I think even for Paquetá, it's for both of those players, it can't be nice mentally to play knowing that this is all going round above you, with you, that at any time really the something will happen that could potentially finish your career.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. I mean, Luis Enrique probably was on a decent wage, is on a decent wage now, and at Betis he would have been on an even bigger wage, right? Apparently, we're talking about something like $5,000. That it sounds more plausible that these guys borrowed $5,000 from him and then we're paying him back. To me, that sounds more plausible than, Luis Enrique saying like, "Oh, I need more money. I know I'm going to jeopardize my career for $5,000
to get your account." Yeah,
like that doesn't seem super plausible. The fact that they're related to Paquetá and sending money to players, not a good idea. But again, he's being investigated because a lot of the bets come from Paquetá Island, which is not Luis Paquetá's private island. It's simply where he's from. His last name is not actually Paquetá, but they just call him Luis Paquetá because that's where he's from.
Yeah, exactly.
You could have been Julien Paris.
Yeah, I would have loved that. But there was obviously loads of betting on him getting a yellow card from the Paquetá Island in those games.
Exactly.
Which again is a bit strange.
Not a good look.
No. Real Sociedad are held... Europe's big five leagues are working on a deal together, Gabby, to close the transfer window before the start of the season. You always said you're a big advocate of that.
Actually, back in the day, I was against it. Way back in the day when it was first suggested, but that was back when, because you had the Champions League third qualifying rounds, and for certain teams were making. But I've come around. This is stupid. It's stupid to see what we see. I don't need to see football clubs playing, and which is the reality for a lot of clubs outside the very rich ones, where they don't know what players they have, and the players all change and everything. I've come around to the fact it's a common sense idea. They would have done it last summer. They couldn't get La Liga on board, and they couldn't get La Liga on board with it because of Barcelona. And I'm not blaming Barcelona right now. They were in an extreme situation after all the Barto debt and after the Laporta leavers. So they said, no, we need to wait until the very, very end because we need to be able to register players, which is fair enough. I think what it would mean is, of course, you could still move players out. And you would. And we saw it this year, players going to Turkey and Saudi Arabia after the window closed. But the implication is that there's no club outside the Big Five that really has money to get top players from the Big Five leagues. So they would be okay with essentially shutting the door. I would expect this would happen, but again, Barcelona, and not just them, but other clubs could say, wait, we can't help it. I don't know if there's a workaround for them or whatever. Real Sociedad are held to a 1-1 draw away to Nice in the Europa League. Jules, it's not quite working for La Real yet this season.
No, and for Imanol, the club is saying that he's not under pressure, but it's true that they haven't started the season well. They were really lucky to get a draw there in Nice because Nice were outstanding. Arthur from start to finish missed the penalty that Ramiro saved on Guesson, but really they were second best again, So I for a team that was so good last season, that played such a nice brand of football, this season it's just not going their way. We saw against Real Madrid, for example, where they were outstanding for an hour, hit the crossbar 3 times or the woodwork 3 times, and then ended up losing the game. So it's not all bad. It's just not happening for them. And usually when you're in that kind of negative spiral, it's tricky to get out of it.
Tell you what, this is still not a team I want to play against.
Yeah,
out of that kind of, just below the very top tier.
Yeah. Hamad Al-Balawi, who will be in charge of organizing the 2034 World Cup in Saudi Arabia if they are approved as host, says that all fans will be welcome, Gab, and privacy will be respected.
Yeah, we say if. I think most people have it a foregone conclusion. December 11th is the day. So he was asked a question specifically by Sky related to members of the LGBTQ community in Saudi. This was an issue in Qatar. It'll continue being an issue there. There's a lot of elements to this about local custom, foreign custom. This argument, this don't ask, don't tell, which is what they did in Qatar. I think it's a much broader situation because the population of Saudi Arabia, I think, is north of 40 million. I think roughly 20 million of those are actually native Saudis. Among those people, guess what? They are LGBTQ people who are Saudi, who live there. It's not just about the visitors and saying, well, do whatever you want in the privacy of your room, but don't do it which already is, you could make that argument. The question is it going to be inclusive for everybody, including actually the Saudis who might be members of these communities? Is this something that FIFA should really push further for? Is this part of FIFA's job? Do we consider this a human right? And to what degree do the stakeholders consider it a human right? All I'm going to say is things change very quickly in the world, and this isn't going to be for another 10 years, and who knows what the situation is going to be like. But I think certainly if you're a member of that community, especially if you're local, right? Or because I always think of it in terms of the people who choose to go, right? Here's who doesn't choose to go: coaches, players, staff members. I mean, in practice, they don't choose to go. And there will be members of the LGBTQ community among them, right? We already know this. But it's also all the locals. And I think the people who don't have a choice, I think those are the ones that you can look after, that you need to look after. And I said, things can change. Yeah. Sergio Rico has a new club 18 months after his horrific accident with a horse. Yeah. Jules, it's great to see him back.
Amazing. Really so happy for him. I think everybody is within the football world, because we thought at some point that he might not survive anyway, that freaky accident, horse riding. So well done to him. He's going to go to Al-Gharafa. It's a new chapter in his career. I mean, he's more towards the end anyway. That hopefully he can enjoy with his family, make decent money, and then just feel like a football player again, because that's obviously not what he has felt like in the last 18 months. So I'm so happy for him. More free agent additions as well, Gabi. Miralem Pjanić, who was Al-Gharafa in the UAE, has joined CSKA Moscow. That's a strange move.
Yeah, I would have thought you already cashed in on the big paychecks, Miralem, when you went to Al Sharjah. Because look, the reality about CSKA Moscow is you don't play European football as long as the sanctions are there. You're pretty much off the radar. I don't know that we're going to mention him again. He's 34, maybe he's thinking one last paycheck. I wonder how big the paycheck could actually be in Russia, because again, without Russian teams work in reality as well. Without European football, the league is what it is. There isn't that much money. It's not like people are sitting there, ooh, let's get, it's not like he's Cristiano Ronaldo, right? I would have liked for him to show that, he can still play. I would have liked him to show that in Europe. Instead, I think he's going to be remembered, sadly, as the guy who's always mentioned when they talk about inflated transfer swaps and plusvalenza, and because of the Pjanić Artur deals. Yeah. Jules, this may surprise you, but I'm not really a futsal guy. Yeah? So tell me about the scandal at the World Cup, France, Iran.
Yeah, so it is the Futsal World Cup, if you are interested. It's pretty good, really, really good, really spectacular. And France played Iran in the last game of the group stage to qualify for the last 16, I think it is. And France lost that game. Iran, a really good team of futsal. But France played, lost 4-1. And a lot of other teams qualified in this competition, let's say, had an issue with the attitude of the French players. It didn't look like they really wanted to win that game. More likely, they wanted to lose that game. And they lost 4-1.
But they still qualified.
They still qualified. Yeah. They were qualified already. Except that losing that game meant that they are now in the easiest side of the draw, if you want.
They're being strategic.
Yeah. And that they, for example, play, I can't remember who they play now, but it's not a team as strong as they would have been had they beat Iran and qualified top of the group. So a lot of countries are not happy with the fact that it looks like the French just threw that game, very happy to lose it, because it meant that finishing second was, so they thought, a better path in this World Cup.
Do we have an ethical problem with it? Because I would have thought,
bit. I thought you should play every game to win it. whether it's a World Cup, whether it's a Sunday League football, and not start like doing stuff like that.
But I think they play Thailand next, which is easier. But you could also make the argument. I mean, we see this in the Champions League all the time. Manchester City have qualified, and so they send out, Taylor, Harwood, Bellis.
True, but they still don't play to lose, which was clearly what the French did.
Okay, but it's not like they played 3 goalkeepers out there.
No, true. But it seemed like they were not very aggressive, if you see what I mean. Like,
I think it's very hard.
Here you go. Go and score. Here you go.
But if you do that, you're not going to lose 4-1, though, right?
Yeah,
you would make it closer if you really were throwing. I don't know.
And if you just decided you didn't want to get injured or anything like that, so you didn't play.
So you play your reserves.
Yeah. Or I think it was close to the strongest team, but just I think the players, were maybe a bit super cautious. I don't know.
If they were here's a tip: if you're ever going to do this, don't lose 4-1. Make it close, right?
Yeah. You're right.
If you really want to do this, all right.
Blake in Switzerland, Gab, report that Egypt could be excluded from the 2026 World Cup. What is this all about?
Yeah, so basically when clubs or national teams organize friendlies, they have to use these people called FIFA match agents who are licensed by FIFA, and they kind of bring the two clubs or the two nations together, and they have a hand in the organizing, the logistics, and stuff like that. And apparently, they used a Swiss company for some friendlies. This Swiss company claimed that they were never paid. So they've lodged complaints with FIFA. FIFA have said, FIFA, you have to, since they are licensed by FIFA match agents, FIFA looks after them. It says, FIFA, you have to pay these guys. A bunch of deadlines have passed. Now the next step is legal action. Theoretically, if they never pay, it could end up with Egypt being excluded from the 2026 World Cup. Now,
they don't have the money, or what's the reason?
I think they have cash flow issues.
Right.
The Egyptian economy is not doing great right now, and there's a bunch of things going on. Now, I don't want to think about FIFA, about Egypt not being at the 2026 World Cup. I don't think this bill, it's not in the millions. It's probably in the hundreds of thousands. Maybe Mo Salah can run a GoFundMe or something, but Egypt belongs to the 2026 World Cup.
Give a third.
Give 2 days' salary.
A fourth of his wage
to be at the World Cup.
Yeah.
José Mourinho explained why he skipped the press conference after his Fenerbahce side were beaten at home by Galatasaray 3-1. And shockingly, it's the fault of Galatasaray coach Okan Buruk.
Oh, of course. Prime Mourinho on this, Gab, saying that basically it's always the away manager that goes first, so they can then leave the stadium, and especially when they've traveled far, which is not the case, by the way, of Galatasaray and Fenerbahce. But anyway, and then Mou said that the press conference was so long from Okan Buruk that he had to wait, and he said, like, I'm not waiting 80 minutes, 75 minutes for a press conference. That's ridiculous. So had nothing to do, obviously, with the result or the fact that he was upset or the trolling from Galatasaray. He just said, like, I'd had enough waiting.
He also said, I've never avoided a press conference in my 24-year career.
Which is not true.
Which is not true. I have never been afraid of journalists and their questions, which, dude, it was last year at Roma where you did an entire press conference in Portuguese on purpose. Okay? When you knew there wasn't a translator there, right? Come on, man. Whatever. It's mind games. It's part of the scenario.
Exactly. Newcastle have contributed £15,000 to a crowdfunder to help repair the sinkhole at Wimbledon Stadium that caused their League Cup game on Monday night to be called off. Gab, that's lovely, isn't it?
It's a nice gesture. I know people are going to say, oh, 15,000. Well, but, PIF have blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you know what? At least they helped out. Yeah. The sinkhole, by the way, if you see these pictures,
it looks like a golf bunker.
Yeah. But,
I don't know how it can happen even.
Exactly. I am not an expert on stadiums and pitches, but as I understand it, AFC Wimbledon Stadium is relatively new. I mean, I think it's got to be in the last couple of years that it was built, right? Presumably has some drainage issues.
Think so, yeah.
This is a country where it actually rains a lot. So to get that big giant thing, I would hope they're covered by some kind of insurance or something, because... Again, I don't want to cast aspersions, but could have been a total freak accident. But maybe somebody there.
The pictures are incredible.
Sign off on things.
The pictures are incredible, really are.
Can you imagine Dan Byrne falling into the hole, like
got swallowed by the hole?
Exactly.